That's a weird advertisement that it just appeared on the stream chat, but okay. Not going to worry about that. In any case, looks like we're live and looks like we're good. So welcome back to D&D in Hindsight. I am Vincent, the person doing hindsighting.
I am the Krampus.
I am Hunter Green.
And I'm Vincent. And hopefully Shiv will join us later. But yeah. Starting this week, we have Lords of Madness, the Book of Aberrations. We also have my notes for Lords of Madness, which are not currently on my screen. Just give me a second. Okay, there we go.
Can't blame British Rail for that.
Hmm?
Said you can't blame British Rail for that.
I can blame British Rail for that. Doesn't mean it's fair, but I can do it. Any case, yeah, this book is very much what it says on the tin. It's akin to Libris Mortis and Draconomicon, a book that's pretty much dedicated to a specific class of monsters, Aberrations, which are probably the most diverse group of monsters in the monster manual, but this is not a catch-all term for things that don't belong in other categories. In D&D cosmology, Aberrations are things outside and alien. Some are magic and science gone even more wrong, while others are to outsiders what outsiders are to the material plane, i.e. things beyond understanding and imagination. Also aliens. They are also some of the most iconic and recognizable monsters in D&D, being creatures not copied from any particular fantasy source as blatantly as orcs and trolls. Also, kind of unique to this book is it has a lot of chapters, and like 6 of them are just straight up dedicated to a singular type of aberration.
Okay.
So it goes into pretty good depth on a variety of things, kind of. Rather than what Libris Mortis did and try to talk about everything all at the same time, even though, yeah, undead kind of vary a lot.
Yeah.
So the first chapter that they give, however, was an aberration. The answer obviously being yes. Yeah, this goes over basically the various origins for aberrations and what they are. And the various types, so stuff like things from deep space in the material plane, or things from before the flood / has survived through the destruction and or remaking of the universe, things traveling from the horrible future or the horrible past, things from alternate material planes.
That weird cat you tell your ma about?
Exactly. Things from the Far Realm, which is the edge of the Great Wheel that borders the inconceivable beyond.
Does that have anything to do with the Fargate?
No. Has nothing to do with the Fargate. It has a mohawk, it's in a wheelchair, we're fine.
I was about to say, that's completely different, Emery.
Also things from the ethereal plane, the great soup plane between all of their planes, inner and outer, where the dead gods lie. Things created by alien gods with their concepts of existence, see Cthulhu Mythos, outer gods, honestly. And things created by magic and or science gone more wrong than usual, see basically caveman sci-fi.
Me go too far.
Yep. Common characteristics among them, sinister masterminds, or masterminds of incredible intelligence that practice cunning manipulation to enact plots, outsiders and invaders to nature, that care not for life or the natural environment or anything other than anything other than something to exploit and possibly corrupt. They're also inhuman evil whose dark deeds are a result of a lack of care for ideas of morality and just a straight self-serving nature rather than any like dedication to the concept of evil. Unlike fiends, which are generally evil for evil's sake because evil is evil, evil, evil.
Well, isn't the and I might be thinking about a different thing here apart from them, but isn't the thinking like they're so alien to us that what they're doing doesn't register to them as like that they don't have the same concepts of morality that we do, and even the most abstract of senses?
To some extent, it depends on the aberration, but as a general, from what I can see, it is very much kind of that. They are of very different mindsets. So the concepts that humanoids use for good and evil are kind of alien to them, but more from their logic just goes on a different train. Like, mind flayers, eating to survive is not evil. Mind flayers have to eat brains. So they're like, what's the problem with me eating brains? But apparently that's evil to you.
See, that's logical to me because we eat animals. What's evil about that?
Do you eat humans?
Like, No, I don't eat humans, but I'm also human. Do illithids eat illithids?
But that's the thing.
Uh,
So the thing is, they don't actually have to eat sapient brains.
Yeah, we don't have to eat half the animals we eat. We can eat other animals. Like, that's not too far stretched thinking, in my opinion.
No, but what I'm getting at is when your food starts talking back to you, this is kind of a different moral argument.
yeah. Also, the illithids are not as good of an example because they still have thought patterns similar to us, at least in most of the traditional illithid starring media. They're just petty shitlords and consider us like meat animals.
That is fairly accurate, but we'll get into them when we get to their chapter more so.
Yeah. Sorry, I didn't mean to derail.
Oh, no, it's fine. Derailing is perfectly a part of it in the first place. Conversation is welcome.
Also, that is technically on topic.
Yeah, fair enough.
Yeah. Not that we don't go tangentially out of topic. I'm perfectly fine with that anyways.
Yes.
Yeah. But yeah. Where... let's see. Oh, little things about them. Also, knowing about them, their language, their magic and stuff can be just plain damaging to your psyche.
Pure Lovecraft, right in my veins.
Pretty much Lovecraft there. And I will interrupt my notes for here's a random fun table because they decided to put it in the middle of here. Let's see. Mind flayers and the Grimmuck Thralls raid a surface world. An Apple sigil causes insanity in any who view it. Nest of Clunkers takes over the city sewers. And then each adopt up the name of a famous artist and decide to match their ninjutsu.
I'm not seeing any super fun ones in there. I think the closest one the one that comes close is 31. A Mind Flayer wizard uses polymorph any object to begin a long-term infiltration of human society, but then it ruins it by taking a human host.
Or by taking a human form, yeah.
Hey guys, I found this cool-looking vase. Why is there tentacles coming out of the vase? Oh, the vase wants to eat my brain.
Blah, 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 blah.
The wacky brain-eating vase.
Wacky brain-eating hijinks. Let's see.
Just like Mom used to make.
Yeah. Let's see. But yeah, as for campaigns in general, they're very much feature villains in a campaign that kind of warp everything around them, including lesser encounters and add levels of intrigue. If you have mind flayers in the campaign, you're going to run into things that they've enslaved to some extent, and also random other beasts that kind of go along with them. If Neogi are in the campaign, you're going to run into Umber Hulks. Stuff like that. Tone is also kind of different than their standard heroic fantasy campaign, as the horror elements are fairly common with Aberrations.
Yeah.
Which reminds me, I should probably actually give a content warning from this point on. The aberration stuff, so some of it can be a little on the grotesque side, not really too bad. Even the illustrations are actually pretty tame. Also, I don't know why, but every single aberration in this book, they decided that their reproduction cycles should be described. So that's coming up in every single chapter.
Fun.
Just to warn you in advance.
The author's barely disguised fetish. Gotcha.
It varies a lot, actually. In any case, we're starting with the Deep Masters, the Aboleth. So, Aboleth have no creation myth, as they think of themselves as one of the most ancient things in all of existence, spawned only by the other the only thing older than them, the Elder Evils, and they have survived several apocalypses since the birth of the universe, multiverse, Great Wheel, something. They think this is true because they remember it. That way with perfect clarity. They believe themselves the perfect primal existence and better than the gods that they predate. Also, this book has nice anatomy pictures.
Oh, that's actually interesting. As we touched on when we went over dragons.
Yeah, the Draconomicon. Yep. Yeah. So aboleths are about 3 1/3 fathoms long and weigh about 464 stones. Though they can get as large as 6 2/3 fathoms.
See, I don't know if you're doing that or if they're doing it, because I would totally expect them to pull that shit.
Oh, I'm doing that. Come on, I use stones.
I'm aware.
In 2nd edition, they might pull that shit. No, it's 20 feet and 6,500 pounds and up to 40 feet. If you're going to use numbers or measurements you're actually familiar with in the United States. For those not familiar with freedom units, Google's there to convert numbers. So yeah, they are long, slimy fish things that spend their lives in the water. They have 3 inline eyes, 4 main tentacles used for locomotion, manipulation, and combat that also emit a mutane slime that they use to make their victims into more appropriate forms so they can serve them in their water layers. Also, they have psychic enslaving powers. So, aboleths have both male and female reproductive organs in their tails and reproduce privately by both laying and fertilizing their eggs. They do this like every 5 years or so. Yep. Takes about 10 years, I believe it was, for an aboleth to grow to full size. Yeah. And aboleth minds themselves are vast and deep sources of primal knowledge in tune with their ancestral memory that is handed down from their parentage and runs back further back than most creation myths. This is why they can actually remember everything literally every time a new aboleth is just born straight up with the memories of the aboleth. This is literally Assassin's Creed. They are fully in tune with their own genetic memory, in other words. Also, thanks to this, they are born fully cognizant and mature with no real childhood, though hatchlings are weak. They're still a small size, obviously. As about 10 years, they stay close to their parents until they leave. Aboleths technically never stop growing and are immortal except for disease or violence. So kill this species with a common cold. But their growth slows significantly after they reach 6 2/3 fathoms. Aboleths themselves have no religion in afterlife, having memories that predate such things. And no real respect for the gods or their own dead, which at best they feed on and consider failures for dying.
That's fair.
Yeah. Aboleths themselves can also just filter feed. They won't, however, unless they're desperate. They prefer flesh, liking marine life, but are especially fond of humans and gnomes. Them in particular. Deep gnomes. That I can never pronounce and refuse to pronounce correctly. Yeah. They especially like it after they've been transformed by their tentacles. So, first cover in slime, then wait for their skin to turn translucent, then eat. They actually don't need to eat much in the way of food either, as a normal human lasts them for a month, so they will sometimes just eat non-essential parts of their prey, or the slaves. Like, you don't need that left leg. Their meals also come in random their meals also come with random flashes of memories from what they're eating, which they consider the height of culinary experience.
Okay.
I don't know why John's childhood trauma is considered the height of culinary experience, but I'm not going to question it.
Well, maybe just that the okay, and I'm extrapolating, of course, on this one, but based on similar other creatures in various mythologies. It might be that the alien sensations of experiencing memories of something that they're not a part of are either taboo or just so different from their own experience, since humans are so far away genetically from them, that it's like, oh, for a brief period I know what it's like to be the meat creatures. Fascinating. I'm going to eat another one and see what it's like.
Okay, but why do they prefer Deep Gnome as well? That's what gets me.
That I couldn't tell you. For all we know, it's the Wagyu beef of, outer god eating.
Wagyu beef of horrible fish monster thing. Diet. Right, speaking of horrible fish monster things, aboleths have variants. So there's the amphibious variant, which sometimes they're trapped by circumstance in less than ideal water areas like swamps or fens and mutate to become amphibious, because apparently that's just a thing they can do. There's the obelith variant, which are aerial. They are societal rebels that fly instead of swim, who rarely take slaves and dwell several miles above the ground in clouds of dense moisture, kept that way by their ancient magics. Note, they can fly, they're still fish. They still need, or fish-like. They still actually need to be moist. Stygian are aboleths who transported an entire world of slaves and minions to Stygia in the Nine Hells, and now just live there in the waters, slowly turning into a new type of devil. Savant aboleths, which is a prestige class, for aboleth leaders specifically. It is pretty much what it says. Hey, it's a caster class. I'm not going to go in major detail over this class that you literally have to be a fucking aboleth to be. This is a template made into a prestige class like they like to do for some reason. Also of note, aboleths are naturally psychic, but since psionics is basically its own side book, and they just appear in the base monster manual, they use magic for purposes of the monster manual, but if you have expanded psionics and want to, you can. They're psychic, basically. As such, this class actually gives manifestor level instead of arcane casting level if you're actually using them as psychic creatures. Also, aboleth feats, which sure do exist and apply to aboleths. Which I guess is a way of making like variants between encounters with different aboleths if they happen to be a major feature in the story. But that's about the only real use for them. Also, aboleth glyphs like let's see. Yeah, they do actually. There is a specific feat for crafting aboleth glyphs, and it is a major thing of theirs. It's basically a major part of their magics. Their glyphs don't actually wear. Basically, other magical glyphs are kind of like one-time traps. They go off and then they're done. Aboleth glyphs just come back after a while. And they have their master glyphs, which do various horrible things. Also, they like magic items, but can't actually create most of them, so capturing slaves that can create magic items is considered quite a prize to them. And also, here's the magic items they can wear, having an abnormal anatomy. Yep. Okay, that's that stuff. So, as for origins in more detail, so before aboleths were the oldest alien noble things that are called the Elder Evils, powerful beings of the fringes of existence that unravel and destroy. One of the Elder Evils, known as Piscathix, or the Blood Queen, who birthed the aboleths by accident and didn't care. This doesn't trouble the aboleths. They see themselves as free to do as they wish because their creator just doesn't even notice that she did it. One of the things they wish to do is found empires, by the way, including the first one called the Primal Empire that spanned the globe, experimented with life until a disaster struck and it was destroyed, which is something aboleths don't talk about even to each other. possibly due to the newly minted gods of their slave races, which also adds to the race's religious tendencies. By the way, when I say they had an empire, I mean it's a sea-spanning empire. Again, they're fish. The land is not actually as much of a thing to them.
Okay, I was gonna say, like, this does. I know these are an original creation because I went and looked this up, and I'm like, okay, they have to be riffing off of.
So you see that. So if you look over here. Yeah, things I will get to in a minute.
Sorry about that.
Oh, no problem. Yeah, if you're noticing coincidences with stuff, that's entirely on purpose. So yeah, but backing up a little bit on this page, Aboleths are agnostics, acknowledging the existence of deities of lesser races and obvious proof of their power in the world, but knowing that such beings aren't all-powerful because the Aboleths continue to live. The closest thing they have to a religion is building monuments to some of the elder evils that they respect. I'm also going to pause here for a second and say there's also a book much, much later in this edition, literally the last on my list, that is called Elder Evils. None of the Elder Evils in this book are in the Elder Evils book. So, yeah. But going over these ones. Balthamog, or Him Who Watches from Beyond the Stars, is the darkness between the stars that keeps the multiverse from tainting the outer dimensions. Oleshnir, the hunger below, a part squid, part centipede monstrosity that burrows into the deepest parts of the earth, eating stone, magma, creatures, cotton candy, really anything and shits explosive tar as well. That one, the Blood Queen. The source of aboleths is portrayed as an aboleth without tentacles and mucus the color of blood. She travels the currents of probability between realities, creating aboleths almost as an afterthought. Tug. I'm not even sure how these syllables are arranged now that I think about it. Shothortug? We'll go Shothortug. Eater of Worlds. An undulating mass of seething fluid the size of a mountain that travels from world to world in the multiverse, poisoning and parasitizing them. And Yachak, the Violet Flame. While its true form is a pillar of violet flame that conceals an inner form which clearly seeing it would invite destruction upon the body and soul, is usually appears as a seductive or respected member of anyone it contacts, urging them towards the destruction of their civilization and the worship of evil deities of cruelty, war, and death, etc., etc. The resemblances to Cthulhu mythos are very much intentional, as is said over here. As a matter of fact, here's the equivalent gods we're going for all of this stuff.
I don't believe it.
It should also be noted that Cthulhu mythos is public domain, so there's no fear of lawsuit.
Yeah.
Let's see. Relations with other races. Yeah, so they see most races as, almost all races, as a matter of fact, as lesser, and are more than willing to use them as slaves for various things. I don't know, scrub them in the bath.
Do their homework.
Yeah. But yeah. Of exception is the Illithids, which they will ally with more than other races for two reasons. One, they are both coldly logical and emotionless creatures that are constantly hungry for knowledge and view all other races as fodder to be enslaved. And two, and the more important part, the Aboleths don't remember the origins of the Mind Flayers, who seem to have just appeared out of nowhere, and that makes them actually kind of uncomfortable.
Well, yeah, your whole thing is knowing everything about your origin and history and genealogy, and that genealogy is perfectly passed down whenever you breed. Something coming up that you don't know would likely a hell of an experience.
Yeah, it's like, oh, and now there's these Mind Flayers. Wait, what the hell are these? And why they have
me? And now there's these Mind Flayers. What the fuck are these things doing here?
Yeah. Yeah. Also, in the back of every one of these chapters is just like a mini adventure. So this one is the God in the Lake.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm not going to spoil much of anything other than what these pictures might spoil, but I'll just highlight them quickly. And
I'm guessing there's a god in the lake.
It's almost certainly an aboleth. Because if it isn't, it's really weird that it's in this back
Doesn't say
of the
the
aboleth
aboleth
chapter.
Well, no, that's Grodd in the lake, as in Gorilla Grodd. He's luring people to the lake and then robbing them.
That's
All right. The Eye Tyrants, or Beholders, which is probably the most iconic D&D monster in this book. Beholders were spawned from one entity called the Great Mother by others. Beholders have no use for a name, and nothing more is known about it. Other than it is actually a god you could worship, and there's more known about it, but we'll go over that later. But yeah. Beholders are deadly and mad creatures that hate everything, especially other beholders. Yeah, beholders are spherical shaped, mostly around 24 hands in diameter and weigh between 285 and 357 stones. Their skin is as strong as steel, and they have one large eye in the center that passively neutralizes magic, and several eye tentacles on top of themselves, which emit various spell-like effects, which is about where the similarities between the external appearances of beholders ends. Though the internals and abilities are mostly consistent between beholders, their appearances vary from beholder to beholder, and all of them think that they are the true form of beholder kind spawned by the Great Mother, and any variation from themselves is a sign of inferiority. The beholder itself is of two minds, literally. They have a rational mind that is totally logical and does all the plans, holds all the magical knowledge, memories, and the beholder's goals in it. And the intuitive mind, which is what observes the world and passes some of that information onto the rational mind, while suppressing things like, I don't know, its failures, its ATM pin number, that time it wet the bed, various things like that.
Yeah, that time. Most certainly not every goddamn night.
Yeah, more like pea holder.
So the not wholly cooperative name. I'm just gonna let that dwell for a minute.
We are on a thing tonight. I don't know what.
I'm not sure what we're on tonight either, but it is something.
Well, unfortunately, I don't have a lot of encyclopedic knowledge on D&D like Mackie does, so I have to fill in with bad puns and Lovecraft references.
It's fine. This is all fluff anyway, so...
Oh, yeah.
Vast majority of this book is a fluffy pillow. But yeah. The not wholly cooperative nature of the Beholder's two minds leads it to being paranoid and xenophobic, and most observers believe Beholders to be insane, which is mostly true, but in the rare Beholder, the two minds actually work together reasonably well, which makes for the sane Beholder. Sane, by the way, being in quotation marks, but...
I was about to say, how thick are those quotation marks?
Not wholly thick, but... yeah. So... They are gender neutral and only reproduce once, spending 6 months gestating up to a dozen offspring and birthing them by vomiting up the womb, which is preceded by the beholder eating most of the new beholders that they vomited and the womb, giving the survivors about an hour before shoving them out on their own, which are the ones that look closest to the parents, and that's the only reason they didn't eat them. Beyond that, they're just out there to fend for themselves. While their theoretical...
Person who wrote this shit, what is wrong with you? Who hurt you?
They're basically just big magic hamsters.
This isn't the worst one. So
who hurt you?
While their theoretical lifespan is about 100 years, only a few survive their first decade. They have strong racial memories when born and already can fly and speak beholder, as well as being xenophobic, intolerant loons. Their eye beams, however, develop later in life, and they are forced by their parent immediately to explore for a suitable lair when born, which makes for a bad survival combination, especially since they are beholders are primarily in the Underdark, which is not exactly that safe. You know, it's full of all these aberrations.
I was about to say.
Including, considering it was birthed by a beholder, other beholders probably. It takes about 2 years for them to reach physical maturity, growing at a slower rate until about 90, where it starts to become frail and lose eye stalks. Though if it magically staves off aging, it will continue to grow. Beholders need only about 10 pounds of food and 2 gallons of water a day, but it will gorge themselves as much as possible, enjoying eating in spite having an atrophied sense of taste, preferring colorful food and interesting textures. They are especially fond of wine, as they can actually taste alcohol, but it takes about 10 gallons of the stuff to get them drunk.
Damn.
Beholders overeat, and after a point can't swallow any more food, so instead they just keep chewing until it loses all texture and they let it drop out of their mouths. Pretty much the definition of glutton.
Mm-hmm.
So, variants.
That's shit.
Yep. Elder Orb. 1 in 7 beholders is born an immortal Elder Orb. They can have levels in Sorcerer and need to close, which they need to close their center eye in order to cast spells. This is just a thing with beholders. Their center eye being emits anti-magic. So, Hive Mother, which are larger and fiercer beholders born with the ability to dominate other beholders to serve them, which is how beholder cities originate. More on those later. Death Tyrants. Undead beholder akin to zombies, used by wizards as guards. Beholders find them aberrant, find them as aberrant as other beholders. So usual levels of hatred, really. And Beholderkin. Offshoots of beholders, some are creations bred from others of their kind long ago by powerful hive mothers and elder orbs as tools for various purposes, while others they aren't true beholders and don't have their xenophobia. True beholders consider them abominations, possibly even worse than other true beholders. One of the few things they actually hate more than a beholder. And the prestige class in here, Beholder Mage, which again is a monster template disguised as a prestige class, but going with that for a minute. The Beholder Mage at least has a decent amount of fluff to it. They pluck out their center eye in order to pursue magic. They use the Sorcerer Wizard list. They learn them like a wizard, but cast them spontaneously. But they slowly convert, which means basically they learn a lot of spells, because wizards just learn a lot of spells as they level up, but also they can read scrolls. They can read scrolls and learn spells by doing that as well. It doesn't go into a spell book; they're just spells known, I think. Which is at least kind of neat. Also, they slowly convert all their eye stalks into spell stalks, which losing its abilities to cast higher spell levels with each level assigned to a stalk. I really did not explain this well in my notes, but basically, every spell stock, they replace their eye stalks become spell stalks, which let them cast a specific level of spells. So when they gain their first level in this class, one of their eye stalks will get replaced with a spell stalk that will cast level 1 spells. When they gain their next level, they'll convert another one of their eye stalks to cast level 2 spells, etc.
Got it.
Every eye stalk can cast a spell as a free action every round.
Damn.
These things are way more dangerous than normal beholders, especially if they're built a little too well. So any DM that is building these by hand, 1, why? 2, use some precaution when choosing what spells it has. They also have a constant mage hand that can do basically everything normal hands can do, like use magic items or throw down. They can literally just punch with it. And a capstone that turns their ruined eye socket into a magic absorber, granting them spell resistance until it absorbs a spell, which the Beholder Mage can use to basically just heal itself. There's also limitations on their eyes, which is the usual limitations. Only 3 eyes can actually go in a direction at a time. And even though it's a free action, it still provokes attacks of opportunity when they cast spells. So they will be provoking a lot of attacks of opportunity if somebody's in melee while they're trying to cast. Also, Beholder feats, which kind of start on this page, but I think I did cut them out. Again, feats that are primarily for beholders. There's actually one exception here, or 2 exceptions here. One is Disintegration Finesse, which makes you better at disintegrating. Disintegration is one of their most notable eye stalks. And the other one is Bane of the Unclean, which is True Beholder, and either you have to be a True Beholder or have Aberration as your favorite enemy, and just gives you bonuses to attack and damage rolls versus Beholderkin. Also, if you're True Beholder, it also applies to other True Beholders. And touch AC and saving throw, yeah. Did I mention that Beholders hate Beholders?
I think I might mention something about it. I don't know.
Yeah. Beholders also practice magic, obviously. They do actually create their own magic items a bit. There are lenses, which basically modify their eyes, and the most interesting thing in this section really is the mouthpick weapons. These are actually kind of neat, because it replaces it is a +1 enhancement on a magic weapon. If you have a bite attack, you can just hold this in your mouth. It notes that recently other races with bite attacks have just started using these weapons. So if you're a player character race for some reason has a bite attack and you want to tri-wield,
Look, sometimes you see One Piece and want to be Roro Norazora.
yeah. Alternatively, it also makes it so you can actually be some interesting builds with like non-standard monster races. Or if you want to be an awakened wolf and actually hold a sword or something.
Pork.
The other notable thing about it is mouthpick weapons just straight up give you proficiency with the weapon, so you're free to use any of the exotic weapons for all it matters.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. Beholder Society. Let's see. Beholders almost never have clerks, but they have reverence for the Great Mother, which I will remind you again. They don't actually call the Great Mother or anything, so don't think about it, and the book doesn't. Seeing themselves as to be the personal spawn and the closest approximation of the Great Mother, and all other beholders are pretenders and an affront that must be slaughtered. Non-beholders generally thrown into a handful of categories based on how powerful or useful it is, which is what this is, basically powerful, dangerous, usable, inferior, or inconsequential. Those categories are so self-explanatory, I didn't even put them in my notes.
It goes
There.
you, the dirt, the worms in the dirt. My beholder stool.
Let's see.
The Great Mother, me.
So, Sane Beholders are rare and, well, they still hate their own kind, but that's more out of a fear of being murdered by a psychopath than anything else, and generally they hide among other races to get away from them. Of note, Sane Beholders are almost always still quite evil, and tend to form. They tend to form or control various criminal organizations with the use of their charm eye stalks, including like thieves guilds or sometimes non-criminal but questionable organizations like magic schools or governments or YMCA's, and especially beholder cults, which often franchise out and convince weirdos to join and pay monthly dues in a strange pyramid scheme. The other notable exception to normal beholder behavior is hive cities. The products of hive mothers trying to bring together the beholder race as the one true chosen of the Great Mother and champions of the beholder race. They also see the hive cities of other hive mothers as all that is tainted and wrong with the beholder race, because of course they do. They still have the same mindset as the other beholders. They still
They're still beholders.
yes. And the adventure at the back here, Sakarvu's Lair. And the other adventure at the back here, the Cult of the Hungry Eye. Because as I said, there's also such thing as beholder cults. Which are exactly what they sound like. They worship a beholder. Not beholders as a species, like that guy. Or whatever.
Yeah.
Alright, on to mind flayers.
Okay. I do have one thought that I wanted to share about the beholders in general. Now that we've gotten through all of them. I think one of the reasons why beholders are the quintessential D&D monster is for two reasons. Number one, they are instantly recognizable. Orb with eye stalks on it.
Yeah.
Nothing else in most fantasy at that point looked like this. There were things that were vaguely similar, but like the physical description and most of the pictures that you get out of that physical description just give you some kind of like weird off-putting ball monster that didn't look like anything else at the time. So it's just, oh, we can very easily tack that onto D&D. And the second thing is that the Beholder is actually the perfect boss. And what I mean by that is, if you're looking for a goofy, like, mini campaign where your adventurers are going through a city and trying to, like, stop the Thieves Guild from doing something nefarious, there's a Beholder at the end of it. If you're going through, like, a warped and twisted area of reality where, you know, the planes are bleeding in and there's these weird, you know, dogs with tendril faces everywhere, and you're dealing with like horror and sanity checks, Beholders fit in there. If you're doing a serious campaign against a big bad evil guy can just have a Beholder as his like right hand dude or like one of his mages. They, because of the kind of megalomaniacal they are and because of what they are, they really can be slotted into a variety of different scenarios, and they can be whatever flavor of crazy you want them to be.
They also have the advantage of, precisely because of how they're built, they are one of the problems that any boss monster you have in D&D has is just the sheer action economics of the game. And that doesn't matter what edition. Matter of fact, this isn't even exclusive to D&D. This is basically any game whatsoever, but especially tabletop game. Action economics is always something you have to worry about when it comes to a boss monster. They kind of have this one down because of their eye stalks, to where they can have a bunch of different actions very easily built in because they have a bunch of eye beams. They shoot in fucking various things. So they also have that advantage of just being straight up built as a boss, pretty much from design, which makes them very, very easy to use in that manner. But yeah. And moving on to Mind Flayers, or Illithids. Let me check my beginning of my notes. Okay, it says here, all we want to do is eat your brains. Okay, that's
They're not
true.
unreasonable.
Yeah,
You won't eat your eyes.
They might eat your eyes.
They might eat your eyes, yes.
So, another quite iconic D&D monster, Illithids, aka Mind Flayers, aka Pisco Demons, to mostly just me, are the cold and calculating evil geniuses made monster. Illithids are...
They're all Pisco Demons to me. I play Final Fantasy games.
True enough. But almost no one actually calls them that. In any case, Illithids are roughly 1 human in height and 1 person in weight. They have thin bodies, pale flesh, and octopus-like heads with 4 tentacles and lamprey-like mouth that is capable and quite often does pierce human skulls. They live in underground cities, each of which is centered around its elder brain, which we'll talk about later. Illithid reproduction starts with making tadpoles, which they do about 2 to 3 times in their lives. The species is hermaphroditic, depositing thousands of eggs into a pool made for this purpose, which also has the elder brain in it, which hatch after a month, releasing tadpoles that take 10 years to mature, during which time they are preyed upon by the elder brain in that pool until only a few survive and are deemed worthy by the Illithids. Next is Ceramorphosis, see Baldur's Gate 3. Where the tadpole is inserted into a helpless humanoid victim and burrows into the host brain, eating it and growing until it takes over. This process takes about a week. It leaves only the lower stem. Their stolen bodies are incapable of producing several key chemicals made by brains, which is why they need to eat brains to survive. After the process, the Mind Flayer is fully grown and can live up to 135 years, but is effectively an infant in mentality, taking about 20 years to actually grow up. Literally kind of the opposite of the Aboleths in that respect. This is not the first time I will say literally kind of the opposite of the Aboleths when it comes to these guys, by the way. Illithids give off a calm and dispassionate appearance, but often are roiling with emotions beneath the surface, all of which are negative. They are just kind of inherently dicks. Illithid variants. So, Ulithards, which are very rare illithids that a colony is considered lucky to even have one. They are taller with 6 tentacles and twice the lifespan, treated with some reverence by other illithids, and often in positions of leadership. Illithid sorcerers, which are shunned by others of its own kind and sort of an enigma, as sorcerers are tied to dragon blood. So maybe something to do with the donor body is suspected as to how. Elder brains. I am a gigantic brain.
Your gigantic brains.
The center of every illithid community is a pool of briny fluid that is both the incubator for the tadpoles that I mentioned earlier and the nutrient pool for the Coven's elder brain. They are a total mystery even to the mind flayers, who aren't sure how they come to be and whose potent psychic powers are insufficient to read its mind. Illithid minds are cast into the pool upon death and absorbed, which is the fate all illithids aspire to. Elder brains are about 1 to 1.25 beholders in diameter, not growing in size from absorbing illithid brains, but growing in knowledge. They are undisputed rulers of their communities, ranging from advisor to dictator in style, depending on what it feels like, basically. They have very large area of 350-foot psychic awareness, unaffected by anything, in which they can sense all living things, so they are quite aware of everything going on around them. They communicate telepathically, as well as facilitating the communications of 2 illithids outside their normal telepathic ranges, so they also help with they're the telephone system for their community.
They're Comstar.
Yes. Illithids have one thing wrong about the elder brain. They think that their consciousness survives after joining the brain. Instead, what actually happens is the brain just absorbs all their memories and knowledge, and they're just dead. Elder brains live forever and guard this information from their subjects.
Yeah, I can't imagine why.
Yeah. Other things. Brain golems. Other brains make these from brains of other creatures and a portion of their own mass. They're direct instruments of the elder brains, basically, for when they need to basically take direct control or something. I didn't put the other ones here, but we'll see them later as well. Alhoons, which are mind flayers who focus too much on magic and become shunned by their society and banned from joining the elder brain. So in response, they do the only sensible thing. They become liches. Known as Alhoon, mind flayers, illithliches to the stupid. This is actually a term. They are considered abominable outcasts to be exterminated on sight by other illithids. Also, basically everyone else, because it's a freaking lich.
It's a lich and an illithid. Everyone hates them.
Yes. Mind flayer vampires. These creatures are also of unknown origin, who are neither created the same way as vampires, nor are they able to create vampires of their own. They are also fully feral, with some memories of their former lives, which drives them to haunt the subterranean areas they used to live. They are also killed on sight to illithids, and again to basically everyone else. Ruffians. Ropers implanted with tadpoles, living akin to ropers and guarding illithid communities and sentinels. They're actually as smart as other illithids, but are treated as lesser, with their only honor being offered to the elder brain upon death. While most remain loyal to the community, some wander for their own reasons. And neothelids. Illithids will never will never not implant a mature tadpole, though they may experiment with various species and not care if it dies. They're never just left alone, however, to mature without ceremorphosis. However, if a community collapses from something akin to killing the elder brain in the illithid community, then the abandoned tadpoles that are neither prey for the elder brain nor being fed by the mind flayers will turn to cannibalism until only one survives, growing much larger on the psychic energy and crawling out of the pool in search of food. Once it devours a sentient creature, it becomes sapient and awakens to its psychic powers, while still remaining somewhat feral hunting creature, preying upon anything it can, including illithids. Neolithids aren't actually in this book. A lot of the stuff I've mentioned here will actually be later for the pretty pictures, but they are giant. They're actually in expanded psionics. They are giant worm things with all the mental powers of an illithid and the ability to spray out tissue dissolving enzymes that leave only the brain intact. An effective hunting method, I guess.
Whatever works.
Yep. Let's see. Illithid magic and illithid magic items. So first and foremost is the Braincaster, which is the cover art of the book. It is a method for storing brains of illithids that die far from home so they can be returned to the elder brain before they decay, as well as just keeping a tasty meal around for later. They're pretty all-purpose. Nautiloids, which are illithid spaceships, and exactly what they sound like. They're nautilus shells. Psionic seals, which are...
Gate 3.
Huh?
See Baldur's Gate 3.
Ah, okay.
It's the opening area for Baldur's Gate 3. It's on Nautiloid.
That makes sense. Psychic seals, which are both psychic tattoos and booby traps in one. Psychic tattoos are effectively their potion equivalent.
Yeah.
Resonance stones, which are something more unique to them. They are emotional transmitters used to basically calm new illithids who are flooded with emotions, as well as for decorating the place with various prideful and self-inflating emotions. They can also be weaponized, because they just straight up emit one strong emotion or another. It's like, here's a resonance stone of despair. You're going to be really sad when you come into this room. Let's see. Yes, the Whispering Shadow. So, scholars believe the origin of the illithid lies in the distant past, where they rose to become a massive slave empire spanning several worlds that crumbled with their slaves, which were the Giths, who developed resistance to their psychic powers and revolted, slaughtering illithids wherever they could find them until the remaining mind flayers fled underground and their slaves started fighting each other. This exploration...
And look.
Huh?
I'm sorry, go ahead.
Go ahead.
And look, nobody would have cared. Like, we would love for them to kill the illithids, because at this point, we have yet to meet a good one. And the problem is, they started killing other people because they got way too irrational about their swords.
I knew it was coming back to the sword.
Look, there's only two things that Githyanki are ever written about in most D&D material, and that is either we really hate the illithids, and that's how you know an illithid's going to show up in the story, is because it's going to be an illithid for the Githyanki to fight, or it's going to be your great-grandfather touched my sword and I'm angry about it, so I'm going to kick you in the nuts.
Technically, they also really hate the Githzeri. Zerai. Which, the feeling is mutual in that one. The Githzeri also hate the illithids, however, so...
I was going to say, I'm surprised they don't realize, oh, we have an ally in each other in that we...
Oh, they already knew that. Yeah, they didn't fight each other until after
like, for example, slave races.
Yeah, like, for example, I touched that silver sword that I found in Shiv's closet. He has not forgiven me since. I
want my sword back.
I didn't take it. I just touched it.
It's tainted.
It has your scent on it. Who doesn't want it anymore?
Also,
like a baby bird.
Alright, so you're just in time for me to explain the other half of this. So, I just described the known part of the origin of the illithid, so here's the unknown part. This entire thing is flawed in one respect. This all happened in the past. The illithid origin, however, is far, far after this point at the very end of time, where their future vast empire was under assault by an unknown assailant, and in their desperation, they broke the very laws of time to flee 2,000 years before the current era, where all that stuff proceeded to that stuff proceeded to happen with the slave races. They're literally from the end of time.
I hate it.
It's cute.
It is cute. But this is why the Abelis can't actually remember the origin of the illithids, because they haven't been origined yet.
As you do.
Yep. As for religion, illithids worship Sensing, a deity that values knowledge, darkness, the mind, and the superiority of illithids. Gee, I wonder why they worship that. The god manifests as a gigantic brain in the caverns of thought, which are beneath the concordant domain of the Outlands. This is the connected central plane of the Great Wheel, with a great spire in the center where Sigil lies. Is the plane literally below Sigil. It is seen as the ultimate form that Elder Brains aspire to. Let's see. As far as relations with other races, illithids have no friends, but the Gith hate them more than everyone else, and that feeling is mutual.
Fair.
And yeah. End of chapter. What's it called? But yeah, as the other one has it. Huh? Yeah. End of chapter mini adventure thing. Yeah.
Yeah.
Nice picture right there. Also some intellect devours attacking adventurer. Oh yeah, this one has two as well. Lair of Sarked. Alright. And on to the slave takers. The Niyogi. Right.
Bug people.
Yep. So the Niyogi are mashed potatoes mixed with some flour in order to make a little noodly wait, sorry, that's nochi.
That's pierogies.
So they are raiders and slavers who take everything they can, only resorting to being merchants when they don't have to have the force to get away with taking what they want. The Niyogi are probably the most refreshingly straightforward evil in this book in a kind of awful kind of way. So they have 3 stages of life. Spawn, Adult, and Great Old Master. Spawn are sentient but vicious hunters that are usually found around Great Old Masters, but are sometimes let loose to hunt as spawns. Adults are the most often encountered Niyogi by outsiders who spend most of their time acquiring wealth and power. They use specialty slave Umberhulks as their preferred muscle, but can also supernaturally enslave others, though they are quite fragile themselves, so adult Niyogi prefer hanging back and climb on various hard-to-reach places while letting their slaves do all the dirty work. And then there are Great Old Masters, who are old and weak adults that have been pumped full of a special venom that swells the body and dims the intellect, turning them into ravenous hungry beasts that adult Niyogi lay their eggs in and provide the immobilized creature with food until the young devour the host from the inside out, birthing 20 to 40 Niyogi spawn upon death.
Huh. You know, I didn't expect that to just naturally segue into the birth stuff, but boy, you sure showed me.
Yeah, I did also say there was worse than this book. Yeah, that's pretty much the worst one.
So we laid our eggs in Grandpa.
As you do.
Oh, that's wonderful. I mean, not for Grandpa, but that's wonderful for us.
Let's see. For some reason oh no, yeah, there's those things. So for some reason they have like characteristics in case anyone would want to run these things for Niyogi as characters. I'm not positive why, but sure, I guess.
I'd say why not, but the answer is honestly clear. Why would you do this? Why would you do this?
They're not even good, that's the annoying part. It's like, so you have like 5 racial hit dice plus 3 level adjustment and are squishy as shit. Granted, you're not as squishy as the one they built because for some reason they decided to like give them a con of 9. A case. Variants. So there's Dwarf Niyogi, a birth mutation that grows much more slowly and only reaches about 1 hand in height. They also have greater mental powers and are usually enslaved by other Niyogi because of this. There's Niyogi Defilers, which are Niyogi with more virulent poison who have learned to spit it out and train in the rogue arts of being a dick. Niyogi Slave Masters, Niyogi who have enhanced their enslaving abilities, own other adult Niyogi as slaves, and are quite wealthy. And Niyogi Sorcerers, which are literally Niyogi with levels and sorcerers. They are afforded great respect if they become, and if they become slaves, they are only allowed to be owned by the tribe leaders, which gets into society. So Niyogi are traveling traders at heart with a complete lack of anything resembling ethics who will gladly steal goods if they can and also resort to normal arbitrage when forced by circumstance. While they trade in anything, they are most famous as slave traders. Niyogi are organized into tribes whose head is called the Administrarch, a position given to Niyogi who owns the most slaves. Slaves are divided into 4 tiers themselves. Tier 1, which is the lowest, and they're considered a little more than livestock, those captured from raids and collectively owned by the entire tribe. Usually poorly taken care of and used for meat and sold as merchandise. The Administrarch is in charge of their care. by in charge of their care, I mean he usually uses some Umber Hulks to keep them in line. The tribes also generally have a collection of Umber Hulks. But yeah, tier 2 slaves, which are slaves directly controlled by the Neogi's mental powers. No adult Neogi controls more than 3 at a time. And they live in constant fear of being murdered by those slaves, as they know their mind control powers are far from perfect. Yeah, if we go back and look at these mind control powers, let's see. 3 times per day, it's Dominate Monster DC 15. Lasts for 24, subject can attempt a new save every 24 hours. So, just a base commoner, I think, has a 25% chance of overcoming this every day. And then murdering it with a shoe. Let alone if it tries...
Most commoners don't have proficiency shoe.
Let alone if it tries to enslave an adventurer, this is just a bad idea. Tier 3
is shoe a simple weapon, or is it a improvised weapon?
That'd be an improvised weapon. Unless it's a shoe that ejects... Or unless it's one of those shoes that the Raptoran used, in which case it's an exotic weapon. Yeah, so tier 3 is the Umber Hulks themselves. All of them are given 1 upon reaching adulthood by the Administrarch, and they can be rewarded more for service to the tribe. The rest of them are just collectively owned by the tribe, basically. And finally, tier 4 slaves are other Neogi. Though this one is weird and more resembles a feudal system than anything, Neogi will find themselves becoming slaves of others of their kind, mostly due to the non-payment of debt. Neogi never used Dominate on other Neogi. This enslavement is more of a cultural norm than anything, with the slave being allowed to keep their own slaves, including other Neogi slaves, that also, by the way, count as its master slaves for trying to figure out who the Administrarch is and various other things. Also, if a situation occurs called the Great Wheel of Ownership, where several Neogi find themselves owned in a circle, so if Neogi A owns B, B owns C, and C owns A, then all ownership of all Neogi is given to the Administrarch. Thus, they avoid doing this. Because they're all stupid and none of them should be in charge of themselves.
Fair.
So upon death or becoming a Great Old Master, Tier 2 slaves are returned to the Tier 1 stock as fast as possible. Umber Hulks are reassigned, and all the Neogi that were previously owned by that one is freed. So some people sometimes, or some Neogi sometimes end up dead for reasons. I can't imagine why. Neogi don't have their own language, or at least they don't anymore. They learn to speak common and whatever language that are useful for trading with everyone. They are traveling traders, so they basically just learn languages that are useful on the road. Neogi use religion mostly as a way of gracing trade. And yeah, that's them. They're actually a fairly simple, horrible race. And Wreck of the Mind Spider. By the way, they travel in these things.
Okay.
Yep.
That's a He-Man toy.
That is absolutely a He-Man toy. Oh my god, I have a lot of notes on these things. Not these, the next chapter. Alright, so on to the Eaters, also known as the Grell. Predators who lurk in the underground and dark areas of the world, unlike all the other things I just described, most of whom lurk in the underground and dark areas of the world, don't worry about it. They have spread out and migrated across the multiverse for one purpose: to find prey to eat. They are not schemers or slavers in any way, only wanting to eat anything they catch, including humanoids who they see as meat animals and their favorite type of prey. A Grell looks like a gigantic brain with tentacles and a beak, like something, you know, a first edition D&D artist came up with or something. Most Grell are feral and solitary hunters, but there are nests as well, led by Grell philosophers who study alien science and sorcery, giving its subjects access to magic and weapons and that the feral Grell don't use, as is described very early in this chapter and then contradicted later in this chapter. So ignore what I just said, we'll talk about it later. Their language consists partially of invisible electrical signals, making it basically impossible to be understood by or spoken by most others. Yeah. The outer appearance of Grill is somewhat deceptive. They are not actually disembodied brains with extra stuff. You can even see the X-rays and the internal organs here.
M80s all the way down.
Yeah. But yeah, they're just strange alien creatures in their own right with from some alternate world with very different laws of nature. Grills don't actually need to eat very often. They are able to eat a lot more in one sitting. However, a 150-pound human will last them for like 3 months, but they'll never turn down a meal unless they are very full. They're not quite beholders. They won't just keep eating just because and let drop out of their mouths. Let's see. They have no eyes and... Oh, God.
A very muffled gurgle from the corner. Quitters!
So yeah, they have no...
You're here.
Yep. They have no eyes, perceive electric auras or living creatures, and they perceive electric auras of living creatures and inanimate objects nearby. They're also like immune to electricity. Electrical auras and impulses is basically their jam. Let's see. They are born with no sex, but the ability to become male or female in weird ways. So male is a permanent choice, made by about 1 in 5 when it reaches adulthood, and possibly later as well. This section tends to be a bit vague and iffy with how they talk about things, so I'm just hand-waving it mostly. But once every 10 years, a male Grell will choose a non-male Grell to take up female characteristics temporarily, at which point they lay several eggs in a hidden safe place, then depart and have nothing more to do with each other, after which point the female reverts to a neutral Grell. Older and more powerful Grell tend to become male, and Grell leaders are referred to as patriarchs.
Hey, baby. You want to turn into a woman and lay some eggs?
No, but I can't say no.
That's right. Our society's fucked up. Not the whole turning into a woman and laying eggs. That's, normal as far as things go. But the fact that you can't say no.
Let's see. Grell start out small and grow larger and larger over their 200-year lifespan. Size means power to Grell, and a patriarch will kill younger civilized Grell who grows too large, leading the lighter ones to live out as feral Grell until they are strong enough to come back in and take over. Grell variants are actually entirely cultural. They are divided between the two things I've already said, feral and civilized Grell. The distinction is fluid. A Grell can go back and forth between being feral and civilized over the course of its life. Feral Grell live out in the dark places, either solo hunters or occasionally in packs, while the civilized Grell gather in organized colonies. Civilized Grell gather in nests and are loosely divided into 3 castes: soldiers, philosophers, and patriarchs, which are vague distinctions, and the colony is really ruled by consensus of all adults regardless of caste. Again, ignore what I said earlier. Grell aren't really builders, so the nest consists of webs of tunnels with important things just kind of left lying around, with a few necessary things being built out of Grell crystal, which is now chemically produced mortar of gray crystal. They also produce livestock pens, which are horrible places where the prisoners get food and edible moss fungus or moss, but no other care or supervision. They may allow useful captives to live longer, letting them choose who gets eaten first. Grell are kind of fucked up.
Look, I'm gonna eat one of you.
Let's see.
But I'm not a monster.
Yes, you are.
Yes, you are.
Okay, technically I am. Let's see. So, Grell don't worship anything, and anything close to devotion that is practiced by the rare clerk is basically transactional nature. It's like, hey, evil god, I'll sacrifice things to you if you give me these cool divine magics.
Or food.
Let's see. Grell respect strength, but still govern themselves with consensus as a bait, though assassination and scheming are normal things to them as well. This is an evil race we're talking about. So, Grell divide all other races into 3 categories. Eden, which is the very broad group of things that they can eat and never regard as anything other than meat animals, though they will play along with some useful individuals who like bring them others to eat or various other crap like that, and then eat them later. Inedible, which is a strange category of beings that can't be eaten that the Grell regard with indifference. Things like, constructs, plants, undead. Like, I can't eat a lich, I don't care.
Not trying hard enough.
Yeah.
I was going to say, you can. There's problems in doing so.
And finally, Great Eaters, the rare category of things that prey upon the Grell. Something they have to begrudgingly accept in their own philosophy of predation and might makes right, but they also loathe. Aboleths, Beholders, Mind Flayers, they all fall into this category, and Grell will seek truces with such creatures if there is a relative balance of power, but will either seek their annihilation or will just relocate the colony if they think the threat is too great to stay near them. Grell are also known for their alchemy, which combines magic with sciences, including the physical laws of their own alien plane of existence. It is also how the Grell spread throughout the multiverse, basically using their magic and alchemy to make tunnels into like the realm of shadow and come out in other places. Let's see. Of note, the Grell alchemy feat is actually quite good, as it just straight up gives you +2 spell pen and makes it a little bit harder for your spells to be identified. In addition to letting you make Grell alchemical items, notably only the Sliver Spear here actually costs EXP to make. So the Lightning Lances you can just straight up make for money. Using them is a different matter, because unless you're a Grell, there's a use magic device thing attached to it, but it can be interesting as a very weird, I'm going to throw a bunch of cash into shooting lightning at things build. And yeah, the adventure here, the Sanklon Bet. Nice little picture of a girl stalking and waiting for ambush. And yeah. And on to the final race in this book, the Wearers of Flesh, or the Sochari, we'll go with. They're infiltrators and assassins from a distant and dark world that travel via portals back and forth from that world, stealing human flesh and stalking powerful mages. Sochari are much rarer than other aberrations, and their threat is more narrow and subtle. The most notable thing about the Sochari, also have a decent anatomy page on there, is the Wear Flesh ability, where it just shoves itself straight inside the body, choosing either to inhabit the individual or outright replacing them for a time until the body becomes too weak to continue wearing. Sochari themselves are an aggregate being composed of several strands that are barely sentient life in their own right, but integrate into a single sapient form. These strands have their own specializations, and that they bring to the collective. Some of them are like, here's the mouths and eyes, here's the hands, etc. Of this weird thing. The strands themselves vary in length between 1 and 2 2/3 yards, with an average of 1/64 of a yard in diameter. Sochar are predictably hermaphroditic, laying eggs every 5 to 10 years that hatch into individual strands that need to entangle with other strands to become Sochar, with it being fairly common for the strands from multiple parents to entangle. This is strangely the most exotic and least gross thing in this entire book at the same time when it comes to reproduction.
I was about to say, that's actually fairly bland comparatively.
Yeah.
They're not like, hey, you're a woman now, let's do this.
Yeah.
Oh, you miss Beholder breeding.
Oh,
That's a thing.
Yeah, so to summarize,
I'm sure it's full
No,
consent.
you don't need to summarize, it's fine. We only just scar our 0 viewers once.
So anyways, Sochar themselves are virtually immortal, able to replace aging strands with newborn ones in a very Ship of Theseus kind of way. Roughly 1 in 10 Sochar are nobles with higher consciousness, larger size, and character class levels. Yeah. Thus, there's not really any listed variants. Mindsight itself is actually a feat, and notably, you just need telepathy to have this. It is actually kind of a neat feat. It just straight up lets you know the location of everything within your telepathy range as per like blind sight or blind sense rather, not blind sight, blind sense. So you know where they are, but you can't actually perceive them. So like if you want to throw a fireball at them, no problem. If you try and swing a sword, they basically have full cover, so you have like a 50% miss chance.
Okay.
But still fairly useful. Unless they're undead, in which case you're fucked, but you still can't see them. Also, you're fighting invisible undead. Not ghosts, just invisible undead. We just decided to make these zombies invisible.
Ah, invisible zombie.
Yep. Yeah. I'm certainly not stalling to figure out where I left off on my notes. Oh yeah, there we are.
There.
So, society. Sokar are ambitious and self-centered and would be launching murder schemes against each other if it wasn't for how immune to their own abilities and physical prowess they are. Yeah, so Sokar's strands are basically steel in toughness, and they aren't actually all that physically strong. Their main ability when it comes to other races is shoving themselves inside of other things, which doesn't actually work on other Sokar. So this is entirely a slap fight.
Fair enough.
Yeah, they have DR5 Adamantite. Let's see. What's their physical attack here?
They have poison, apparently.
I have a Construct, which is 2d4 plus 2 damage. They're immune to their own poison. Obviously. Yeah, they can't do terribly much to each other, actually. You can go to Conscript rolls, they might start hurting each other, but yeah. So their own, like, invulnerability themselves really keeps them from being bigger dicks to each other. They just resort to normal levels of dickery.
I mean, if they want to dick with each other, they have to go find a body to jam themselves into to use that.
Yeah, basically. Yeah, they are organized into several rival castes, with nobles, priests, arcanists, soldiers, and merchants being the most important. And to go over each of these, nobles is meritocratic. There's no real lineages to be had, considering how they reproduce. That makes sense. And everyone also is kind of immortal, so lineage also means absolutely nothing when you're immortal.
Yeah.
Priests, probably the most powerful caste, as Sokari are actually fervent adherents to their deities, with Makathum Natha being the most influential. Yep. You'll have time to make fun of that. No. Viewing the plundering and sacrifice of other races as a holy mandate. Arcanists, they're the ones that assimilate and study stolen magic of other races, infiltrating and subverting wizards guilds. Of note, because I kind of glossed over them a little, their wear up here is take spells. So they have two things they can do when they wear flesh, which is either they basically inhabit the person. This is usually when it's a voluntary thing, so they just hang out inside, or they just outright replace them, which is they kill them and wear them as skin. This will last for about a year. Notably, if they do that to a spellcaster, they get all the spellcasting.
Oh.
Oh, interesting.
Let's see.
Okay, so great idea for a video game.
Mm-hmm.
You're playing as one of these things, and you're fighting others of your kind, but you have to continually keep finding and stealing wizard bodies to go have duels with opponents. And you're trying not to get caught, because if you get outed, they'll form a big enough army to just, like, trap you and kill you.
That'd be interesting.
Yeah, that would actually be interesting.
A little bit of prototype in there in the tracking people down to use.
Yeah, exactly.
It's basically high fantasy prototype or akin to it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm actually all for this. It sounds amazing.
Yeah. Let's see. Oh yeah, those Arcanists. Soldiers, the next cast. They serve the above three casts, kind of balancing the rivalries between the three, while each of them kind of seeks to ascend to nobility in one way or another. And finally, the merchant caste, which are nothing of the sort, even less so than the Neogi. They are explorers, slavers, raiders, and spies seeking to just enrich themselves. There's a race of dicks. What do you want? So, as mentioned earlier, they worship Makathun Naktha, the nine-tongued worm that embodies infinite knowledge, destruction of barriers, and the spanning of space and time. And yes, this is yet another god that embodies knowledge. Don't fucking think about it too much. They certainly didn't. It uses the Sakari to spread its worship to and lore to other races. Sakari treat other aberrations as sort of kindred, but hate how dismissive they are of deities. Humanoids are seen as steeds to be used and discarded at will.
Fair.
Yep. Let's see. Notably, they have a couple of unique spells here for Sukari. Permeable form, which basically lets them exit a body without it harming the body. generally used when they want to like leave an ally. Normally, them both entering and leaving and staying in a body will just keep causing damage to that body because
You're
know,
saying
it's a
that having a
massive
big,
fucking
tentacle worm thing inside me does damage to my insides?
Yeah, go figure.
Oh, that's what I've been doing wrong.
That's not realistic at all.
The other thing here is Whisper Cast, which will let them just cast also inside of a body, effectively, so as not to reveal themselves. And yeah, the mini adventure at the back of this one, the House of Daros Frist, which me showing you practically any pictures from this will spoil the adventure, so I'm just fucking, here's a tower. Great. So, on to the more generalized chapter of new monsters, starting with the Beholderkin. Here's some Beholderkin. Here's a Hive Mother. If this looks like a Beholder, that's because it is. But yeah, Beholderkin are way more variant when it even among Beholders when it comes to what they look like and what they serve as purposes. Like, here's a Beholderkin Overseer, by the way, who can also dominate Beholders. Basically, originally created by Hive Mothers as just a subservient thing to also help them control more Beholders. In their non-stop crusade to do the same thing as all of Beholder kind, I kill everything that they consider an aberration to the Great Mother, which is other Beholders. And the Spectators, which are kind of unique and interesting here. So they're not evil. They're just lawful neutral. As a matter of fact, they're from the Clockwork Nirvana of Mechanus. They are modern calm Beholderkin. They're most likely to actually like talk and befriend people. If you actually want to play a Beholder, this is pretty much the most fair way of doing it. Strangely enough, they have no listed level adjustment. And honestly, with the natural hit dice, yeah, with their natural 4 hit dice, that's perfectly fine. They're not like an overly... They're not like an overly nonsensical race. Yeah, they even just have a fly speed. Yeah, this would be runnable perfectly fine. It's just like, yeah, you have 4 hit dice. That makes up for all the powers you have. Their eye beams are not anywhere near as ridiculous as true Beholders.
Or Beholders, yeah.
Yeah. Yep. And here's an Elder Brain. Also, psionic rolls for that Elder Brain. Is big brain. Here's yet another Kraken monster, the Elder Eidolon. These are gargantuan constructs from fucking who knows what.
I made a big Kraken.
That's great, little Billy.
Release the Kraken.
Here's gas spores. Can you guess what this is?
It's a gassy Beholder.
No, this is just a plant.
Oh.
It
It's the form of a gassy Beholder.
Yeah, it just takes the form of a... It is literally just a plant that grows into the shape and look of a Beholder.
It's like grass type.
I mean, it was created by ancient Beholder mages.
Oh, yes, it was, but yeah.
Yeah, but what wasn't at this point?
They made it in their own image so they could hate it.
I need to get practice hating on other Beholders.
I hate how accurate that is.
Look how ugly it is. Ah, perfect. This is my Beholder voice.
Oh, the Giving Mouther.
Yep. Oh, yeah, this reminds me of something completely different earlier on. So everything else in this book, except for the Sokari, existed in previous editions of D&D. The Sokari actually knew this book.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
I guess.
Speaking of things that existed like since first edition, is actually the Gibbering Mouther. I'm actually surprised it's in here, and not the base monster manual. Actually,
base monster manual? Nah, that makes too much sense.
Probably a mission for space, honestly, but yeah, nice to actually see it. It's a fairly classic and straightforward monster. Have far spawn rolls. These are exactly what it sounds like. Half thing from Far Realm.
Just a regular thing you glue tentacles onto.
Yep, just a regular thing your tentacles onto mainly. I can spell like ability. Some stat adjustments. 4 freaking level adjustments.
I mean, all the half ones are like 3 and 4 level adjustments, so that makes sense.
Yeah, it is. Okay, spell resist at least. It's like hit dice plus 10. Yeah, change shape a little bit, yeah. Let's see. Yep, there's a Mind Flayer, a Hlume. Ithelich.
That's you.
Yeah. It's a lich. It's a lich Mind Flayer.
Hey, Greblock, are you still eating brains? No, now I'm into something darker.
But also still eating brains.
So they don't actually need to eat brains. I mean, they totally do,
But
they don't need to eat brains.
I don't need to do a lot of things.
I'm not required to eat brains anymore. I'm gonna eat brains.
I would say this makes them more evil than the normal Mind Flayer, but no, that's pretty much just the level that you go to and you just stay there.
Look, they don't hate them because they're abominations. They hate them because they actually got to do it first. And all the other little things are just jealous.
Let's Ulithards. This is the, like, basically elite Illithid's double lifespan, and as you can see, like a couple of extra long tentacles. Mind Flayer vampires. Pseudo-natural creatures are also in this book. With their yeah, pseudo-natural creatures have very horrific looks to them.
That's just uncomfortable to look at.
I want to kill it, and it wants me to kill it.
Okay, I need to go over this race for later. It's Silithars, the Silthilar.
Silthilar.
Silthilar. We'll go with Silthilar. So, yeah. So this is actually kind of a lie as a picture. The monster is not that thing you see. The monster is actually the cloud. This is a swarm. So this is an old race of flesh crafters that flesh crafted themselves into swarm creatures. This is what they originally looked like, and they can form like basically generic versions of themselves to look like. That is one of the 2 most notable things about them. The other thing is that they are strangely, incredibly scrupulous, despite the fact that I said they're flesh crafters. As a matter of fact, they're usually chaotic good. This is the only good thing in this entire book by alignment.
They're just crafting.
Yep.
They die.
Because extra erotica being thrown in the brain pool is kind of a lie.
We turned you into an Illithid. Why? So we could hate on you.
Fair.
Alright, now the player character chapter, kind of. The Aberration Hunters. Although Yep. Starts with going over, like, various tactics for dealing with Aboleth, Beholders, and Mind Flayers. Also this neat picture.
That is a neat picture. I am wondering why she didn't put on more armor to go fight the Mind Flayer.
That's just her outfit.
That's just the iconic. That's the iconic druid.
No, that's the iconic wizard.
Is that the wizard?
Yeah, that's the iconic wizard.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
I'm to use my boy Hemet with his belt pants.
Yeah. No, Miali is not very recognizable as a wizard. Or that's the...
Looks more like a druid to me.
Yeah. No, I had to deal with this for something else we'll get to later.
Yep.
Hey, case. The deities, or unhuman gods in this book. So, to go over them. Gaunadar, that which lurks, or the Elder Eye, a primordial deity of Faerun, actually. It is the Lord of Oozes, Slimes, and icky underground stuff, sometimes worshipped by the Drow or Aboleths, rarely. It It rewards its worshippers or maims the faithful completely on a whim. It's not a great god to worship. Let's see. The Great Mother. There are actually symbols. That's the symbol for the Great Mother. Gelthadar was that a one. Yeah. Progenitor of beholders and all that the beholders hate. It exists to replace all other creatures in the multiverse with its offspring, who are busy doing so, starting with each other. The Great Mother possesses a great deal of knowledge, and possibly all of it, but so much so that it is virtually impossible for most things to communicate with it, and is generally considered hopelessly insane. Human cultists who revere beholders as deities actually get their power from the Great Mother. Mostly because she thinks it's funny. Illicene, the Mind Flayer deity that embodies, well, basically them. You can guess which holy symbol is Illicene.
Could be any of them.
Yeah. Makthum Nagatha, the Sokar deity, nine-tongued worm, is an entity of the far realm, and unlike most things here, is actually interested in the material realm, but so far as only worshippers among, horrible shitter races. Like the Sokar. That is actually that one. This little pot thingy with like 9 things coming out of it. It's not sure what they were thinking with that one. The patient one, which is this right here. This is actually returning from the Book of Vile Darkness and a patron of aberration races that it waits and watches until it's time to feed on humanoid sacrifices. It is an old and ancient divinity of unknown origin. Unless you're an Aboleth, you probably know when this shitter was born. And
that guy.
Yeah. And Tharzazun, an ancient evil god imprisoned by all of the human gods. He seeks the unraveling of the universe, and his followers think that he will grant them favors when he reforms the world. Citation needed. This is right up there with worshipping Azathoth. Right, feats section. And as usual, useful feats section. Starting with really useful feat, Darkstalker, actually considered one of the best rogue feats. So yeah, this one lets when you're hiding, blind sense, blind sight, scent, tremor sense, all the stuff that just instantly tells people where you are. Nah, they still have to make a list and spot checks. Fuck them. If you actually want to be a scout as a rogue, this is the best feat you can take. You're not accidentally going to wander too close to a dragon and then it's going to breathe on you and you're going to die. Let's see. Our things here: parrying shield. The shield is a bonus to touch AC, which can be nice depending on how often the DM likes to use things that have touch AC. Quick recovery, which is also, its use varies depending on how much your DM likes being a dick. Basically gives you a save at the beginning of each of your turns against a stunned or dazed effect, even if it doesn't normally allow a save. This is also very useful when fighting Mind Flayers, because one of the Mind Blast does stun, I believe. Yeah, it stuns. Also, Wild Talents is in this book, because, psionic things.
Yep.
Let's see. Ocular Spell Meta Magic, which lets you cast spells and hold them in your eyes for up to 8 hours. Then as I believe it was full round action, you unleash both of them. As a singular action. Yeah, as a full round action, you can unleash both of them. So you could unleash 2 spells at once, which is at least kind of neat. Does use up 2 levels higher, but...
Like they have to be rays or spells that target someone beside yourself.
Yeah. So it is an arrow category, but you could probably come up with something.
Yeah.
Aberration Bane Magic. This is not meta magic. This just is straight up on all your spells. You do a spell that deals damage, you just do 2d6 extra aberrations. And the DC is also increased by 2.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. So, the binary on this is, are you fighting aberrations and doing any spells that do damage? If so, take this feat.
Or have DCs.
Or, it does have to be, if the spell allows a saving throw, the DC is increased by 2. It actually has to be a damaging spell.
Ah, okay.
Yeah, it's not all the DCs on all of your spells. It's the DCs on your damaging spells are increased by 2. It's still good, but
it's still good.
Yeah, there are also spells that will coincidentally cause damage but are more useful as CCs. Also in this one is the Aberration feats, which I actually put the feat rule here because this one's actually important. The more of these feats you take, the more unsettling and human appearance you get, and you get negatives to basically social rolls, including animal.
I'll be right back.
Yep. So
he's gotta go take one of those feats.
Yep, he's gotta go take one of those feats. He's gonna get some bulging eyes. So yeah, the basic level feat. Yeah, choose one of these mutations to have.
Okay. Bonus on various checks.
Yeah, bonus on various checks. Aberration Wild Shape, straight up. Lets a druid that's already taken Aberration Blood, which is basically the entry feat for this entire line. Everything requires Aberration Blood. But yeah. Lets them Wild Shape into Aberrations. Which I believe the Master of Many Forms doesn't naturally do Aberrations. I'm not positive.
Does a lot of stuff.
It does a lot of stuff, but I don't think Aberration was one of them. Bestial Hide, this is my mandatory, hey, a feat that just gives you 1 AC is not broken. As a matter of fact, this one can potentially give you more, depending on how many Aberration feats you took.
Yep.
Durable Form, here's a better toughness, because it gives you 2 hit points per Aberration feat you have, which means it's just 4 straight up if you take 4. Yeah. Star Spawn, here's a fly speed, but it only lasts for like 1+ con modifiers at a time. Also resistant 5 cold. It's not a bad way of gaining fly speed. If you just more want it for exploration and the occasional moving around in combat. Similarly, Water Spawn, here's a swim speed. Warp Mind. Racial bonus on will saves against mind affecting abilities equal to half the number of aberration feet you took. Also a power point for every aberration feat you took. What's the other thing to know about Warp Mind is because it's giving you power points, it is literally the equivalent of having wild talent. You just by having this feat, you will qualify for psionic feats.
Feats because you have power points. Yeah.
So it is an alternate way of doing that, especially if you're already taking aberrant feats.
Yeah.
And Deep Spawn, which is probably the most interesting of any of these anyways. Yeah, you straight up just grow 2 tentacles. These are natural attacks. They can both be used as primary and secondary. Go nuts.
Hey.
If you don't mind looking like an abomination, this is great for a rogue, by the way, because it's just more attacks.
2 more sneak attacks.
Yep. Natural weapons are naturally finesse weapons, so you can just use dex to attack with as well. Alright, on to the prestige classes. Starting with Abolisher. Druid-like divine casting class that loses up to 2 levels of casting. Sort of progresses wild shape, or gives you wild shape if you aren't a druid. It leaves some of the features out as it progresses, so it's not a full-on wild shape. It also progresses Animal Companion if you have it. Let's see. Has a growing favorite enemy aberrations. Bonus to save versus aberrations, which equals 1 in your normal form, or charisma in your in an animal, elemental, or plant form. Growing bonuses to spell pen as a growing bonus to spell pen against aberrations. Adds a fort save or sicken effect versus aberrations on your normal attacks. When in wild form, I believe that was, or when in wild shape form. Pretty much everything this thing does like that is in wild shape form. Yeah, on your natural attacks. So, yeah. Once per day has a 20-foot radius fort save or nausea versus aberrations that lasts as charisma rounds. Because we have to add charisma into this class for reasons. And finally, 3 times per day free action that is plus 66 or 3d6 fire damage to aberrations and a 3d6 damage shield versus aberrations. So yeah, this class kind of just sucks. In its best place as an aberration focused campaign, it makes your divine casting more mad by adding charisma to its wanted stance, unless you've found a way to do a divine soul that wild shapes well and has wild empathy, because you need wild empathy to qualify for this class. Even accounting for that, the abilities are underwhelming in comparison to more levels of spellcasting until you get high enough level for the favored enemy plus capstone to at least make you painful to aberrations when wild shape for a few rounds per day. Other than that, yeah. I'd say you're just better off staying in druid, honestly. Especially since I believe it stops scaling up the size of the animal you can shapeshift into, and doesn't give you the alternate types of animals. I think it just gives you more hit dice, and it gives you more hit dice and more uses of wild shape, but nothing else. Let's see. Dark Runner. An explorer skill monkey class focused around spelunking that can technically be entered at 5th level. It only has survival. The only thing that actually has the highest level thing is survival 7 ranks. So this thing gives you the ability to find a place you have studied. Literally just straight up lets you at will cast Find the Path to get to that place. As long as there's been 5 miles of it. Adds class level to move abilities and to survival. They gain a free light source in the Dark Runner emblem, which also gives them another bonus to survival. They get +2 bonus to attacks and skills versus aberrations. Longer dark range, just increases as they level up. Or not dark range, dark vision. Let's see. Plus intelligence to initiative and the ability to ignore difficult terrain and get a +2 DC while on difficult terrain while underground for all of that. Once per day, enlarge dimensional door that has to follow a path that is no more than 10 feet. It is literally a dimensional door along basically a tunnel. It is literally called Tunnel Port. The game Tremor Sense. The ability to track or better on unworked stone and once per day Stone Tell. Let's see. Increasing your bonus to aberrations against one type of choice eventually. +2 will saves and your Stone Tell tells you more things. Stone Tell being I didn't mention this earlier. Stone Tell is a spell where you get to ask stone questions. How well that actually works out is really dependent on your DM.
Oh, look, Hazy, I'm a rock.
Let's see. They get skill mastery underground with the movement skills and plus into damage rolls while within 30 feet while in difficult terrain. This is their only real damage thing. There's not really much combat in this class. Let's see. Eventually, their tunnel port their tunnel port dimension door upgrades to just straight up greater teleport. However, with the same restrictions as tunnel port, so how far you're going using this, I have no idea. And finally, their capstone is actually good. It is Earthglide for 10 plus int rounds per day. Earthglide being the Earth Elemental movement ability, which just you straight up move through unworked stone, earth, etc. without you just meld into it and go through it. So the movement stuff in the underground it is good, specifically in an underground campaign. This class has no relevance outside of an underground campaign, very much like the city class has no relevance in a campaign that doesn't take place specifically in a city. But this class does almost nothing to advance combat capabilities, even accounting for that, or help other party members move through all these obstacles, other than like the level 9 greater teleport, because at least you can take other people along with that. Sorry, greater tunnel port. I don't believe you can take other people with Dimension Door.
Not with Dimension. No.
Let's go look that up out of curiosity.
Yeah, that's what I'm doing.
Yeah.
You and objects touched other willing creatures, so yes, you can.
Okay, so you can at least get some people out of Yeah, so you can at least get the party out of situations, which is kind of useful. That's a level 3 ability. It also comes with cave fighting, which was one of the... which is their first actual, like, semi-combat thing. But, yeah.
Does it have a listed caster level for it?
If it doesn't have a listed caster level, it'd be class level.
Teleport, your caster level is equal to...
Class level, yeah.
Class level. Okay, so you could take, at most, 3 medium creatures with you at level 9.
Well, the second you hit level 9, you have Tunnel Port, which is the greater teleport version for the caster level is twice. Okay. Yeah.
So until then, you can take two people. It's 1 every 3 cast levels.
Okay, yeah. So you have 1 to start with and 2 after, yeah. So you can't really take the whole party until you get to 9. So yeah, it's useful for movement, but it's not really, and exploration to some extent, but it's, the second you get into a combat encounter, and quite frankly, D&D is built for you. It is very much a combat system that happens to have other things tacked onto it more than anything else. Most challenges you're going to experience are still going to be in the combat realm. That's not to say that your campaign can't have a lot of non-combat. God knows ours usually do have a lot of non-combat. But as far as like abilities on classes are concerned, combat orientation is... the combat skills go a long way more than the non-combat skills generally. And just having like none of them built into the class, that kind of kneecaps it quite a bit when it comes to just general usefulness. Like you're great during exploration. You're depending on what skills you have, you might be okay for solving non-combat problems, and then when you start to come into combat problems, he can help you get away. All right, Flesh Warper. So there's flesh crafting in this book. It's just later in this book. This is the caster class that grants flesh, or that grafts flesh onto things. It basically loses level to turns familiar into an aberration, gives it like these little extra abilities, which is kind of neat. It also gains a reserve pool to spend in place of EXP on making grafts. They're effectively an item crafting thing. And it gets up to 3 choices from a list of personal enhancements, which are swimming, seeing, initiative, immune to sonic damage, climbing, +4 versus mind affecting, anti-disease, and +2 natural armor. May I remind you, this is a caster.
Yep.
So, from that list, okay, there was an initiative bonus. Mind affecting is kind of okay. Immune to disease, I guess. Bonus to scene if you have good scene, or yeah, bonus to the scene skills if you have good scene skills. Other than that, they gain more grafting options. So basically, the graft flesh feat in this book, you have to choose one of 3 different racial flesh grafting. There's only one good choice, but you could get but you have to choose one of the 3. They get to choose an extra 1. I think eventually 1, and I believe eventually 2, or they eventually basically get all 3 choices. Finally, the capstone turns them into an aberration and gives them a +2 con, because turning them into aberration is kind of meh. I mean, the class is fine, but nothing great either. The secrets are okay, but the grafts are... honestly, the grafts are more useful in non-casters as are its own personal enhancement that I can't give away. If you're doing a more physical-oriented caster, that somehow has a familiar. So, you're talking wizard or sorcerer, usually. You don't technically have to be an arcane caster. This is any caster level, but you probably are. But yeah, if you're doing like a combat sorcerer, this might actually be more useful than not, or something like that. Keeper of the Cerulean Sign. So, Cerulean Sign is the generic brand equivalent of Elder Sign. Talk to your doctor before starting Cerulean Sign.
Nope.
So this is a full progression caster that hates on aberrations. Its abilities are charisma based. If you haven't noticed, the theme in this book of things hate on aberrations. Let's see. It needs to craft a Cerulean Sign in order to enter this class, which requires a spell that's available on most lists and gives you luck. The item itself gives you luck bonuses to saves and spell pen versus aberrations. It's up here, basically. It's actually a really good magic item in a specifically aberration-oriented campaign. It's like, obviously drops off if the less so, but that's pretty much true of all these prestige classes. So as for abilities, it detects aberrations and mind-affecting spells and abilities on things, and aberration cultists, it can do that. It can do all of that class level times per day. Akin to detect magic, basically. Up to 5 times per day. It can scale its Bane magic feat. Or, yeah, because it has the aberration Bane magic as a prerequisite. So up to 3 times per day, or up to 5 times per day, sorry, it can triple that feat. Meaning it does 66 damage and increases DCs by 6. Once per day, it has an AoE dispel against illusions cast by Aberration and Aberration Simps. That also makes them pass a Fortitude save or just take Charisma damage. Yeah, just take Charisma damage. One of the few things that actually does that. Also, once per day, Mental Backlash. That after being unaffected by a mind-affecting thing from an Aberration or Aberration cultist, you can force them to make a fort save or take a d6 damage per class level and become nauseated for d4 rounds, save for half damage. Jesus Christ, there's a lot of caveats on that. And finally, a capstone that is a once per day force save or die on an Aberration that, if it works, you just heal for an amount equal to the HP it had.
Nice.
Which, it's neat for a capstone. It is just once per day, but still. The DC is also good. Assume you're going to want to be charisma to get into this class, obviously, but it's like 20 plus charisma. Or everything in this class is charisma based. So in context of an Aberration focus campaign, this is just plain good. And it does sweet, glorious nothing in all other cases other than being like a full caster, which by sweet, glorious nothing I mean is still perfectly fucking fine. But why you would be running this in a campaign with no aberrations, that's a different question. If you're in an underground campaign in general where aberrations will almost certainly make an appearance, but not be everything you're fighting, this class is still fairly solid as well. Just because it hates on aberrations so fucking hard. Alright. Sanctified Mind. So there's a 6th level class with both a full base attack bonus progression and only loses 1 level of either divine casting or manifesting, but needs you to be either a psychic race, a class with, or a psychic race, be a psychic class itself, or take the wild talent feat because you need to actually have power points to get in here. You also need proficiency with all martial weapons. So as far as getting into this class, you either need to take a 1-level dip in fighter if you're a full caster or manifester, or just be a psychic warrior or a psychic rogue in order to qualify. Psychic rogue I haven't gone over because psychic rogue was technically only ever available on WotC's website, but it was released around the time of expanded psionics. I might go over it at some point later, but it's not really important to the moment. Just assume it's kind of like Psychic Warrior, except it only has like 5 levels of manifesting and it's a rogue. Otherwise, I think it has sneak attack dice instead of bonus feats, basically. A case. As for abilities on this class, it can, as an immediate action, turn a daze or stun into just a slow effect instead. They can do that for max total duration of its class level plus its charisma bonus. It can kind of break that up, but it depends on how long the daze or stun lasts, basically. Also gains the ability to expend its psionic focus to smite a psionics user for plus wisdom to hit and plus a d6 per class level on damage. There's no limit on the amount of times you can use this ability, which I will guess will be 0 in any campaign. Unless you are fighting, like, aboliths or mind flayers, and you remind the DM that they are technically psychic, even if he's not using the psionics rules. And he buys it. Also, they have a growing to twice per day ability to attach a fort save onto a melee attack that cuts a psionic creature off from its psionic and psi-like abilities for d4 rounds. Also has plus its class level to resist grapple checks. And gains power resistance 5 plus character level, which power resistance is spell resistance. It's not a great amount of it, but it will give things like a 15% chance of failing their spells, which is not nothing at least. So if targeting aberrations is narrow, targeting psionics is super narrow. A few of these abilities are well designed to be themed against their targets, but still come up versus other things like the power resistance and daze stun degrading. But their added offensive abilities want the campaign to have psionic things, which almost never is the case, to be honest. If it's a mind flayer focused campaign, this is great. If it's anything more diverse, not so much. I mean, I love psionics, and as a DM, I think I have never used a psionic in a campaign, and they never appear in modules, which tend to stick to either base monster manual stuff or make up their own monsters when needed. Occasionally, you might have a Mind Flayer or an Aboleth, but they're not. Those are more like one-off things. With that said, it doesn't cost you much either, and it does give you a middling of spell resistance, I guess. Like, it does also have a full base attack bonus in addition to nearly full progression, so there is that at least. You could definitely do worse as far as prestige classes are concerned. You could also do better. And finally, Topaz Guardian. Paladin-like prestige class that doesn't care that it loses two caster levels because it's a Paladin-like prestige class. What it gains is a free headband magic item that gives +1 sacred bonus to AC and saves versus evil creatures that eventually scales up to +3, and it also prevents charms and compulsions natively. They also had caster level against grapples. They have Smite Aberration, and that's it. All the same, the hat is the best feature on this class, and at least it's got a broad design. Except for Smite Aberration, everything here just kind of applies to everything. Or semi-everything. Versus evil creatures is broad enough that's going to be like 80% of the things you're fighting, at least. It's perfectly serviceable and probably good in a campaign where you're going to see a few aberrations a day. Alright. And that's all of those lackluster prestige classes, so let's go on to spells. Starting with Invoke Cerulean Sign. This is certainly not Elder Sign.
Completely different.
Yes. This is a different tree.
Mm-hmm.
For those who have played Fantasy Flight games and are more familiar with their Elder Sign, which is a star, that is just a Fantasy Flight thing. The Elder Sign is actually supposed to be like a tree-looking thing. Yeah, this is basically the equivalent of like Holy Word or Blasphemy, I think it is. The alignment spells, basically, that say, hey, everything that is not of my alignment, screw you. And just inflicts various status conditions on them. It's notable, it's actually a low-level spell for Druids and Rangers. Other than that, interesting things in here. This 9th level swift action spell, Invoke Magic, which is anti-magic. You cast the spell and it lets you cast magic in an anti-magic field.
They would have worked, man.
See, now you're just starting the arms race.
Yeah.
Yep.
Alright, I'm gonna need
What's the
some
next level of
anti-magic.
I was about to say. The anti-invoke magic zone.
Exactly. It prevents you from casting Invoke Magic. It doesn't do anything against actual magic.
Yeah, because it is specifically just anti-invoke magic. Nothing else will it affect. But man, is it going to prevent you from doing that.
Morality Undone. This is a spell that exists for the DM to dick with its players, with their players. Just turn someone evil for like 10 hits level.
Like, that's not necessarily going to fuck over a lot of people, but there are classes where that's going to fuck them over.
Maddening Scream. Yeah, so here's a CC spell. Lasts a D4 plus 1 level rounds. Or yeah, D4 plus 1 rounds. They do nothing but scream, get a bunch of debuffs. By the way, there's no save.
Oh, fuck.
Now, mind you, this is leveling the madness domain, so there's not really any great ways of getting
It's a
this,
limited scope.
Yeah. It is also mind affecting, so they at least have to be not immune to mind affecting, but it is just, fuck you, dragon. Assuming I overcame your spell resistance.
Yeah.
Let's see. And Nature's Purity, which is more or less an anti-aberration, version of Scorching Ray. It is level 3, but still. Also has a higher crit range. It is also technically a force ability, because this does force damage. For that one force mage. Except this is druid, so not really. Here's a magic item section. Nothing of terrible note, but I will point to the Codex Anathema, which is actually mentioned in all of the fluff sections of this document. Basically, it's assumed a lot of the knowledge that is gained about aberrations from various people come from this one guy named Ephigor of the Ebon Mirror, who basically stared in the Ebon Mirror and wrote a book of maddening knowledge about aberrations.
Oh, so some sort of mad guy writing a tome of knowledge the man was not meant to have. Got it.
Exactly.
He wrote the heck out of that tome. A Hecronomicon, you might say.
Yep. Yes, so here's the graph feat over here in the sidebar here. So, basically, when you choose this feat, you get to choose one type of graft. Aboleth, Illithid, or Silithar. That was the chaotic goods. The Silithar were the chaotic good swarm race. I didn't even bother putting the Aboleth one on here. This is the Illithid ones because they happen to be on the same page as the Silithar. The Aboleth also have 3 options, all of which are kind of mediocre, much like these ones. And then the Silithar ones are just plain good. So basically, there's just one good choice for this. Now, mind you, the Silithar options are not cheap. Though if you are actually doing the flesh crafting race, these will be at half price. There's an XP cost attached to it, but that's what partially one of the class features was, to give you a pool to pay from that for. But yeah, like this one is +1 to 5 natural armor. Not an enhancement bonus, just natural armor. It doesn't stack with natural armor you do have, but it does stack with enhancement bonuses to it. Straight up initiative bonus and to a bunch of other skills as well. 5 foot increase your height by 5%. Also your base land speed by 5 feet, I guess. Fast ceiling 2, which is not worth that price really, especially compared to what else you can do here. Spot bonus can't be flanked. That's kind of cute. Okay, now the main ones. Here's +2 con, +2 strength, +2 dex. These are typeless. And Silithar Heart, which, yeah, if you drop below 1 hit point but not to -10, you can immediately just heal for 48 + 20. Once per 24 hours. Which is...
Not bad at all.
Yeah, not a bad contingency. And finally in this book is Defenders of Humanity, just various orders that fight and dick with aberrations, and sample members of those orders. And yeah, that's pretty much this book.
Alright.
Yeah, so quite long, but honestly, I like it. This book came with a lot of praise. I don't think we ever interacted too much with it when we were in our heyday of playing 3.5. Almost kind of wish we did, because I just don't think we owned it at the time. Or if we did, we just picked up late. But
yeah, it's not what I recall as having.
Yeah, but
Off the top of my head.
this book is actually good. It's just a straight good fluff book. I spent a lot of time just dissecting this, and it's quite an interesting read through in a similar way that like the Draconomicon is, just for aberrations instead.
Yeah. The fact that it's got 2 of what I would consider the most iconic D&D villain races, or at least used as villains in campaigns most often, because I want to say there's like 2 or 3 Dungeons and Dragons games that use Illithids as the villains.
Probably at least. And
I know that Neverwinter Nights 2 and Baldur's Gate 3 do. And I know that you spend a brief period of time in Baldur's Gate 2 in the Underdark, and they have you dealing with various Underdark problems, which does include Illithids.
I was going to say, Hordes of the Underdark is the best of the Neverwinter Nights 1 expansions. And yes, it had an Illithid in it. And a Beholder? Though I think Beholder was completely optional.
that wouldn't
But yeah, no,
surprise me.
they are They are probably two of the three iconic antagonist races that you will find for D&D media.
Yeah.
The third being Drow, but they're never the big bad.
Well, they're all chaotic good rangers.
No,
One
no.
away from the civilization. We've established this.
We certainly
Nothing
haven't
to
run
say.
this joke into the ground and are going to keep running this joke into the ground.
Yeah, but we haven't run it into the Underdark yet.
Haha!
They are either male dual-wielding chaotic good elves, rangers, or female spider fuckers.
Yep.
Only extremes, no middle.
But yeah, anyone else have any other thoughts on this book?
This was a surprisingly meaty book, and
Yeah.
a lot of it was actually very interesting.
Yeah, this is one of the actually solid books that holds up past 3.5. If you are not doing 3.5, but are doing a fantasy game of any sort, there's a lot of stuff to mine from this, honestly. You can also pull all of the more obscure races to use, because no one's going to remember that Neogi exists as a D&D race. And Sokar appeared in this book, and I think only this book. Which is kind of a shame. I actually like them.
I mean, there won't be any specials with him, but they'll still pull him out, or they're not really regular TV shows with him, but they'll still pull him out for like specials and holiday and stuff. Neogi Bear, Boo Boo.
Oh,
Oh, yeah, I remember him from the Laugh Olympics.
Yeah.
surprised someone remembers the Laugh Olympics.
I am cursed with remembering a lot of things that most other people don't. Also, the Laugh Olympics was like a who's who of every other Hanna-Barbera property. If you
Yeah.
remember other Hanna-Barbera properties, congratulations, you remember Laugh Olympics.
It's the original Smash Brothers.
It's Jabberjaw, but he's doing hurdles for some reason.
All right. So yeah, that's it for this book, and that's actually it for books, but I have a couple of other things for us to do. So I will be right back.
Oh.